There's a small town at the very top of the GTA 5 map that at first glance seems incredibly boring. It's got a little church, quiet beaches, mountains all around, and a chicken factory that gives off Major Gus Fring from Breaking Bad vibes. The town is called Paleto Bay. The funny thing is, the more I researched this place and the more time I spent walking through its streets, the more I realized there's something seriously strange about the people who live there and about the whole essence of the town itself. And the question we're answering today is pretty simple. Is it actually possible to live a normal life here? Well, let's find out. I spent quite a few hours exploring Paleto Bay. I walked down pretty much every street, every alley, basically the entire town, so I could answer that question without rushing. In this video, we're going to cover a lot. We're going to talk about corrupt cops, a Breaking Bad style chicken factory, how the Ballas run the local sawmill, a serial killer who lives in town, and why this bridge is broken. We'll also talk about the truckers' strike, and why this entire town is basically one big stage for a massive web of corruption. And to figure out if it's actually possible to live in a place, I always look at four main aspects. First, basic survival, which means food and healthcare. Then urban mobility, the roads, the gas station, the entire infrastructure of the city. After that, the economy and daily life, basically jobs and entertainment. And finally, the urban structure, which includes the police, the firefighters, or any other government institution that represents the city's public services. But there's something different about this town. The more I investigated it, the stranger things started to get. There's something that very few people know about. A really bizarre secret that connects the sawmill, the chicken factory, the bank from that famous mission, and even the town's police department. And when you put all of this together, guys, your mind is genuinely going to be blown. Stay until the end because I'm sure you're going to enjoy it, since I promise the conclusion of this story is going to be really interesting. In the meantime, leave a like and subscribe to the channel because it helps out a lot. Now, let's get into the video. So let me explain and get everyone on the same page here. Paleto Bay is a small rural town that, unlike many other small towns in the game, actually feels like a place that could exist. Seriously, everything about it is really cool. Rockstar knows how to imitate the real world and how a town like this would actually function. According to the game's wiki, it was founded in 1898 and has an estimated population of around 4,000 to 5,000 residents. In reality, it's mainly based on Fillmore, a small rural town in California, with elements taken from other small towns as well. For example, the towns of Gorman, Somis, and Piru. It's basically a typical American small town. Street businesses, a few main roads, a corner church, and a big pickup truck parked in front of every house. As we drive through it in the game, you can see that it also has a very defined purpose. The Route 1, which is also known as the Great Ocean Highway, cuts right through the middle of the town. So in practice, it's basically a huge truck stop. There's a mountain on one side, Mount Chiliad right there if you look closely, and the ocean on the other. It's a town full of working class people who probably make a living from the chicken factory or the logging industry. But the population is pretty unstable and changes depending on the flow of travelers coming from the south or the west side of the map. There's even a description in the game's digital manual that perfectly sums up the vibe of this town in just one sentence. Church, bank, gun store, and bar. After all, what more would we really need to enjoy life in the American countryside, right? There's also something really interesting about this place. You can find signs and scars of the recession all over the town. There's a pet shop in the game, Paleto Pets, that shut down with a note on the window thanking customers for all the years of support and hoping the recession would eventually pass. There's also a lot next to the workshop, the Paleto Construction Company, that was supposed to become a car dealership back in 2008, and 5 years later, it's still sitting there unfinished. Paleto Bay is beautiful, but it's a town that got hit hard by the 2008 economic crisis. And it's important to remember there's a whole context behind that. GTA 5 takes place in 2013, just a few years after the 2008 financial crisis, the one that shook up half of the United States. Rockstar made sure to spread that feeling of aftermath and recovery across the entire map, specifically to show what happened in real life. In Blaine County, which is the poorest and most forgotten region of the state, this hits even harder. And that's why you see so many closed businesses, abandoned construction projects, and so many for sale signs around the town. It's not a mistake by Rockstar or something they simply forgot to add. It's intentional. The town is genuinely living through the aftermath of the 2008 crisis, just like thousands of real small towns across rural America did during that time. And well, starting with food, this town is already doing pretty well. I can tell you that right away. There's an actual supermarket here, the Willie's Supermarket. That big building you're seeing there, that alone is already more than what many rural towns have. The game even has a pretty spacious parking lot, and you can really tell Rockstar put effort into making it feel realistic. There's a convenience store at the entrance of the town, and there's also Don's Country Store at the rest stop, so you can easily do your monthly grocery shopping here, buy actual food, not just the processed stuff you usually find in convenience stores. The only slightly weird detail is that this supermarket is huge, but it's always completely empty. You almost never see any NPCs going in or out of there. It always feels like a Sunday morning, but I think that's more of a game limitation than an actual problem with the town itself. Now, when it comes to healthcare, I need to clear up something that might seem obvious. It gives the impression that a town this size wouldn't even have a hospital. But well, it actually does. There's the Bay Care Center on Delos Avenue, right next to Paleto Boulevard and right by the Hen House nightclub. It's Paleto Bay's main medical facility. This is where you're taken if you get injured in the city. Besides that, there's also Pop's Pill, the local street side pharmacy, where you can get medicine or whatever first aid supplies you might need. So even though it might not seem like it, the town's healthcare system is actually fine, and I think you could live here without any major problems. And even though all of this exists in the game, there's a really strange detail I can tell you about here that almost nobody has noticed. This same hospital that provides healthcare for the entire town is shared with the city's funeral home and crematorium. In other words, you can take care of everything in one place. If you get sick, they treat you. If there's nothing they can do, they'll just cremate you right there and deal with the problem. Everything at the same address. The thing the town truly lost was its veterinarian, since like I mentioned earlier, Paleto Pets shut down because of the recession. So if you have a dog, you better look for another town. And we're going to see that despite that, pets are actually pretty common in the houses we're about to visit. And as for the firefighters, we'll also see that they handle medical emergencies for everyday situations. So Paleto Bay manages pretty well in that regard. The problem is, if something really serious happens and you need a large hospital, then things could get complicated, because it's worth remembering something Trevor says during the game. He mentions that from Paleto Bay to Los Santos, it's basically a 4-hour drive. In other words, the town's hospital could handle more common everyday situations, but anything beyond that could become a real problem. But if you have a more serious emergency, you really wouldn't be able to make it there in time, since it takes about 4 hours to reach the city center.
Would you open your damn eyes? I don't care.
So, a quick summary. The food situation is well taken care of, and healthcare is actually better than it seems. Now we can look at what it's like to get around the city and what living there is really like. Paleto Bay is right next to Procopio Beach. It has a beach, a pier with an ocean view that you can visit whenever you want, even though the pier's bridge is broken. And here's something really interesting. In one of Lester's lines during the heist mission, he mentions that the water up there in the north of the town isn't actually the ocean. It's a river, a detail that almost nobody pays attention to, but Lester is always out there bringing up useless trivia. So to wrap up the mobility section, the town is extremely well connected. It has paved roads and very well built streets, gas station, repair shop, train, and even a beach if you want to have some fun. So what more can we say about Paleto Bay, right? We'll find out in the next chapters what this town is hiding. Starting with jobs, this is where Paleto Bay really impresses. For a town this size, it actually has real industry. The biggest employer in the city is definitely the chicken factory, with those Cluck and Bell trucks constantly coming in and out. And this factory is one of the best designed things in the entire town. According to the GTA Wiki, it was founded in 1917 by the Bell family. Its original name was Bell Farms, and it's where they process the chickens that supply all the Cluck and Bell restaurants across San Andreas. It takes up the entire eastern side of the highway. There's even a giant statue of a rooster standing on top of a bell by the road, playing around with the company's name. It's a small reference to the famous giant chicken from GTA San Andreas that everyone remembers very well, and every year 2 events take place there: a poultry contest, the Paleto Poultry Pageant, and a beauty contest called the Cluck and Bell. I'm pretty sure you didn't know that one. But this is where the first strange thing in this whole story that I promised you at the beginning of the video comes in. In one of the GTA Online updates, during the Cluck and Bell farm raid, Rockstar revealed that this seemingly harmless chicken factory was actually hiding a drug cartel operating cocaine from inside the facility. The factory that feeds the entire state was also a front for drug trafficking. Does that remind you of any famous TV show? Well, it's not just the factory. There's also the sawmill, the Paleto Forest Sawmill, right in the middle of the woods. In the regular open world, it just looks like a normal sawmill, with workers from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. and logging trucks heading out to the highway. But once again, according to the GTA Wiki, in 2013 this sawmill was being used as a packaging and distribution center for marijuana by the Ballas gang. There are actually quite a few missions in the game that revolve around this.
Place is crawling with ballers, you know? Now me and you, we don't mind the old gang warfare, but Suede Buck's over there.
Yeah, tell Trevor I said bite me.
Man, I said shut up. Now I see the weed, but where the fuck is Lamar? Oh shit, there he go.
You know what, tell Trevor I'm gonna be up on this hill with my rifle. I don't want to be anywhere around him when he fucks this whole thing up.
Classic, huh? He's already planning his escape. Oh, fuck.
Besides that, there's the rest stop garage for mechanical work, like I already mentioned, and there's also a financial services business downtown, Paleto Bay Financial Services on Duluas Avenue. So when it comes to jobs, there are actually plenty of options, at least in theory. The town also has a complete civilian life. There's a church, the St. Bridget Baptist Church, run by Reverend Goodfellow. And look at the joke Rockstar made again. The sign on the church door says that it's closed on Sundays. Yes, a church that's closed on Sundays and its bell rings every hour even though there's no tower, no clock, and no actual bell up there. There's also the town's post office, which by the way is very well made. The Post OP operation, which is an obvious parody of UPS in the United States, has its own location in Paleto Bay. There's also Paleto Tattoo on Dulos Avenue. There's also a pretty good option for entertainment. The town has the Bay Bar, with such a simple exterior that honestly it barely even looks like a real place. And then there's another bar that I think is probably more interesting for most of the residents. There's the Hen House, a country club based on a real life venue in California. One of the protagonists can even buy it for the small price of $80,000 in-game money. There's also a beach here where you can ride your bike and just enjoy your time. There are these houses here with tree-filled backyards, a barbecue grill, chairs to sit and relax, a radio, and neighbors next door, a true American home. Honestly, I really like walking around these little houses in this whole area. I definitely live here. If you want a video about the best houses to live in GTA 5, I'd love to make one, because I could easily see myself living here. I love exploring these houses and imagining where I would live inside the game. There are several houses in this town that would honestly leave me impressed, and I'd be really happy to live in one of them. And there's another house in particular that I want to show here, with this staircase leading down to the beach and a place underneath to store a boat. Honestly, I'd move into this one without thinking twice. It's also a very down-to-earth and honest place to live, and this house here, with this entire view and this structure, is definitely one of the best in town. Anyway, on paper the city is perfect. You could retire here and live a peaceful life. And that's exactly why the next points I'm going to talk about are going to weigh a little more, because now we're getting into the darker side of this town's story. Let's start with the good part, which is the fire department. Here in Paleto Bay, they actually have an impressive setup, and this station you're seeing with the fire truck parked out front is not some tiny little station. According to the GTA Wiki, it's fire station number 1 of Blaine County, the largest rural fire station in all of southern San Andreas. It serves Paleto Bay and the entire surrounding area, so if something catches fire, you're definitely well taken care of. It's worth remembering that the town also has the Paleto Bay Sheriff's Office, the police station you're seeing here, which is based on the real-life Fillmore police station. The structure itself is pretty decent, but there's a sign right at the entrance of the town that, in my opinion, is the strangest and most revealing detail about all of Paleto Bay. It's a sign from the town's own police department that basically reads, Paleto Bay Sheriff's Office. Successfully completed 35 days without a drug-related arrest. Good job, team. And if we stop to think about it, guys, it's literally just a police sign bragging about going 35 days without arresting anyone for drugs. 35 days in a town where the sawmill is packaging marijuana for the Ballas and the chicken factory is hiding a cocaine cartel. It's classic Rockstar dark humor. As usual, a piece of lore that a lot of people don't even pay attention to. The sign is obviously a joke, but it's also a small piece of the town's story that we usually overlook, and that's what makes it so cool. In the end, guys, the entire town is basically fueled by drugs, and the police are celebrating that they haven't arrested anyone. How bizarre is that? And then there's something else that really shocked me during my investigation, something that honestly I had no idea about. There's a bank in the town called the Blaine County Savings Bank, which is the one we robbed during the Paleto Big Score mission. And yeah, that's the one. According to the game's wiki, this Paleto Bay Bank isn't actually holding the money of the town's workers or the people who live there. In reality, it's where the sheriff's department keeps money from bribes, extortion, and corruption in general. At the time of the robbery, there are at least $8 million in dirty money sitting inside that bank. In other words, the police pretend they don't see anything. The same criminals involved with the drug trade use the town's bank as a vault for their illegal money, and the game's own wiki makes it very clear that they're taking advantage of the local residents. What's interesting is that you can actually see some residents parking in the lot and walking inside to use the bank's services. That area is actually very alive, I'd say even more alive than some other places in the game. And there's one final detail that ties together everything I discovered. When Michael and Trevor rob this bank, the police response doesn't really match what you'd expect from a small rural town. The truth is, the police that show up are extremely well equipped and highly trained. Even Noose shows up, which is basically the game's elite police force. The military comes in, everything shows up. And then I have to ask, how does a town of 4,000 people have a response like this? How do they get these guys to react so quickly when the bank is being robbed? Basically, because the money inside that bank is extremely important to them. Losing it affects them way too much, so the military level retaliation is massive. And just when I thought I had already seen basically everything bad about this town, I actually stumbled upon another story that very few people know about Paleto Bay. Remember when back in the mobility section I talked about that broken pier and about the water in the north of the city that Lester says isn't the ocean, it's actually a river? So there's a character in GTA 5 named Merle Abrams, also known as the Infinity Killer, because he has a psychotic obsession with the number 8. He believes that the number 8 is just infinity standing upright. Well, according to the game's story, in 1999, this guy murdered 8 joggers and hid the 8 bodies exactly in the waters around the North Point Islets north of Paleto Bay. So guys, this beautiful beach we see here and this pier with this ocean view that we pass by was the exact place where a serial killer chose to dump his victims' bodies that were never found. The calmest waters in San Andreas are literally a cemetery underwater, and nobody in the town ever talks about it. You don't find anything. So, is it possible to live in Paleto Bay? The answer is yes, absolutely. You can actually live here pretty comfortably, guys. You have a supermarket, a hospital, the best rural fire station in the state, jobs at the chicken factory or the sawmill, a bar, a nightclub, a beach, and houses with backyards. What more could you possibly want, right? For a small town in a game from 2013, it's incredibly complete and unbelievably alive. The thing is, there's a price to pay. This is also the kind of town where you can choose to live a quiet, peaceful life as long as you're willing to ignore all the other problems, like the corrupt police, the chicken cartel, the marijuana operation at the sawmill, and the story of the serial killer. So of course, if none of that bothers you, it's completely possible to live the small town American dream. And honestly guys, this is GTA at its purest, a town that looks like the American dream, a place where anyone would want to live. But once you actually investigate and do a real analysis, you realize that things are much worse than they seem. For me, yeah, you could live here peacefully. I just wouldn't be able to sleep peacefully. So it's probably better to hire some security or something like that, or set aside some money to pay off these cops because they're definitely going to extort you. Now I have a question for you. Knowing everything we've discovered, would you actually live in Paleto Bay? Or did all these things we uncovered in this tourist town end up scaring you away? Tell me down in the comments if you enjoyed this kind of analysis. But before that, leave a like and subscribe to the channel because it helps our content a lot. Well guys, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. See ya later.